The Office of the Prime Minister Press Office is the primary liaison between the Fourth Estate and the Office of the Prime Minister and Cabinet.
Every day, we are working to build a more inclusive economy and a stronger, safer country.
Hear all of the latest developments as the Davis administration carries out the broad mandate of progress and change. Our live weekly press briefings provide full access to current newsmakers on the most topical issues of the day. We facilitate prompt responses from cabinet ministers on the latest reports and get answers on the issues that matter to you.
Will any penalties be levied against the
OPM Press Now, keeping you in the know. Prime Minister Philip Davis, addressing one of the country's most contentious political issues head-on Monday, rejecting an opposition call for a select committee on immigration as a hindrance to real progress.
We, on this side, don't see it as a necessary tool at this time. And I don't know whenever we'll see it as a tool, but at this time, as the minister has indicated, the time is for action, not talk.
The opposition call followed Prime Minister Davis' address to the nation, in which he declared that shantytown residents would have to leave the illegal communities and that a wide range of immigration violations would be prosecuted as part of Operation Secure. In the interest of progress, the Prime Minister is reaching across the aisle on the matter.
We appreciate the opposition's interest in these issues. If you oppose Operation Secure, or any of our efforts to uphold and defend our laws, we believe we have many opportunities to say so. If you have good ideas and solutions to propose to add to our efforts, those, of course, are most welcome and will be given all due consideration. There's nothing to stop you from proposing, along with all the opposing you like to do. We urge you to stick to the facts at all times.
Laying the national framework on immigration on the table of the House, the Prime Minister reiterated his commitment to see the immigration intervention through to completion.
We are taking decisive and comprehensive action to address the issue of irregular migrants and shantytowns. The Bahamian people will see for themselves that we are working to protect our communities and our country. Everyone who is prepared to stand together to protect the sovereignty and security of our great nation is invited to do so. Let us have a minimum of theatrics and a maximum of cooperation. The Bahamian people could depend on me. They could depend on me to stand for them.
Keeping you in the know. This is OPM Press Now. The government's fiscal performance is exceeding expectations, with revenue projections surpassing forecasts, outstanding bills being reduced, and tourism taking off at a record rate. Combined, the numbers point to a rebound that the Davis administration has worked strategically to achieve since day one. Value-added tax income for the first 6 months of the fiscal year among the numbers outlined in the Davis administration's mid-year budget presentation. It's validation that the government's decision to reduce VAT from 12 to 10%.
The rate cut encouraged consumer spending and provided desperately needed relief to many thousands of Bahamians. Despite the reduction in the nominal rate of VAT from 12 to 10 for the first 6 months of the financial year 2022-23, revenue from VAT receipts grew. By $23.7 million. Grew by $23.7 million to $600.2 million.
Revenue projections also make a strong case for optimism.
In the first 6 months of the fiscal year, revenue exceeded projections by $79.4 million. In addition, the Department of Social Services, Minister Bobby Wilscombe, identified $8 million in one account. Let's put it this way, of unused balances on its accounts at the Bank of the Bahamas and Canoe.
During the pandemic?
These amounts were for previous years, so we brought them in to be transferred to the Consolidated Fund and account for as revenue.
For the first 6 months of the year, total revenue collections are estimated at $1.2 billion, which represents a $111.5 million increase over the same period of the prior year, and tourism performance and projections compound those gains.
In 2023, stopover arrivals are projected to exceed pre-pandemic levels as the sector grows to meet continued demand for travel. Based on current trends, the advanced bookings, as last year's momentum carries over into this year, it is predicted that total visitor arrivals will exceed last year's 7 million visitor arrivals by at least 20%.
The Prime Minister also reporting that at the halfway point in the fiscal year, the government's unpaid bills total a mere $90.7 million, or 2.7% of budgeted expenditure, compared to the 31.3% reported in the previous year. Keeping you in the know, this is OPM Press Now.
Media colleagues, our guests, those joining us online, good morning. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. We have an exciting briefing planned for you today, giving you the information you so valuably need to get your jobs done. We have something that I think all of us are interested in. It's very topical, so I'm going to introduce Press Secretary Clint Watson now, who is going to introduce our guests today.
Thank you, Jillian. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, colleagues, all of you joining us, various streams and live on television. It's good to report to you another week on what the Davis administration is doing and how we're handling the affairs of the Bahamian people. As you would know, this week in Parliament is the mid-year budget communication. It was delivered yesterday by Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis. It outlines where we are, what we're doing, where we're headed as a country and as an administration. And today we're going to follow up more with that with the Minister of Economic Affairs, Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides, who will talk more about the budget, what those numbers mean for you. He would have given us some talks last week in regard to the business license and some of the relaxations during this period for people. He'll give us an update on that as well, so we know how that's going, and take your questions. And of course, we also have some great announcements from Prime Minister to give to you today. And then, of course, our Bahamian food feature of the week. And if you are in this room, you can't help but smell something good. And so we're excited to feature that for you today. So we'll get right down to it and take your questions that you have for us as well. So let's begin with Minister of Economic Affairs, Michael Alcides, to continue dialogue on the budget and any questions you may have in his regard. Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Good morning to all present and watching live and on television. As Mr. Watson said, the Prime Minister presented the mid-year budget performance report yesterday in the Parliament, and the message that came out of it is that we are on the right track. And I think I should just take a moment here to explain, perhaps to the public, what the mid-year budget is all about. What it represents, as the name suggests, is just a snapshot as to where we are at the middle of the year, that is at December 31st. As you know, the budget year runs from July 1st to June 30th every year. And so the budget is presented in May, debated in June, enacted in July, and the law requires that in February, the government present a report on the mid-year performance, how those projections that were presented in the full year budget are doing up to the half-year point. And as the Prime Minister said yesterday, we are on the right track. I would like to say as well that we produce a lot of reports, because I've seen some commentary the day before, yesterday and the day before about some, performance of one monthly report. I think there was some reference to a report in November. What the Ministry of Finance does is they produce monthly snapshots. So for every month of the year, there's a report produced showing how the budget performed. There's also a quarterly report every quarter. And then, of course, we have the mid-year report, and then we have the full budget that will be presented in about 8 weeks or so at the last Wednesday in May. Our budget, and so there's some commentary, and we had the commentary as well on the mid-year budget that, for example, the deficit was up, and I'll explain that. But the main takes that come out of the mid-year budget, revenues are performing exceptionally well. By and large, we are containing our costs. We are roughly on target to meet our 4.3% deficit projection for the full year, and we're very optimistic that we will either meet or exceed that target. I want to say as well to members of the public and to the press that over the 12 months of our budget year, from July 1st to June 30th, the revenues and the expenditure are not equally distributed. So, for example, historically, we have collected most of our revenue in the first half, in the first half of the calendar year, the second half of the fiscal year, so that period between January and June. That is when the bulk of the revenue is collected. This year, we have seen a very, very good sign where we have had 44% of the revenue collected in the first half, as opposed to 43% last year and 35% the year before. So what we've seen happening is we're collecting more revenue in the first half of the year. The second point I wish to make is that in this year, we've had some very, very heavy expenditure commitments that had to be done in October as well as December, mainly related to our debt obligations. And so the point I'm wishing to make here is that this period that we're now in is the time when we will see the bulk of the revenue come in. We've also seen those heavy commitments taken care of, so the spending will not be as much, so we should see an even better budget performance during the second half of the year. And so the point is, we look at the performance, and we're looking at trends, and we are on the right track. We're moving in the right direction. When we present the budget, you would note, those of you who report for business, et cetera, is that we present multi-year projections. And so we're projecting a deficit of 4.3% this year. We're on track for that. We're projecting 0.9% for next year and an actual surplus of 1.9% the following year. And so we are on the right track, and the news is positive. And any sort of, you really should not look at it as simply dividing by 2 and saying, oh, I saw some report today say, well, the deficit is up. That's timing related. We are fully confident that we will meet our projections because more revenue will come in the second half, and we won't have all the heavy spending obligations. I want to say, too, that when the administration came in, we resolved not to have any tax increases. Our recovery strategy, and it's a multi-year strategy. That's why I talk about the fact that we do projections over multiple years. The multi-year strategy of the government was to restore the country's finances by growing the economy, by having improved revenue administration, doing a better job. All that means is doing a better job of collecting the taxes that are due. Cost containment, containing your costs, and finding new sources of revenue. So we're in areas where we have not collected revenue before, find some ways to collect revenue, and that is the whole carbon credit discussion. And so utilizing those four components of the strategy, we believe, and we've seen that we are gradually moving in that direction of sustainable finances. And I heard a response from some elements of the opposition saying that our projections are optimistic. Yes, they are optimistic, but I would just like to say every projection that we've made since we've come to office, we've beaten. We've not only met them, we've beaten those projections. And so, yes, it's optimistic, but all that means is we have to work hard to achieve them. And like I said, we've met and beaten every single projection that we have made. So we feel good that the economy is moving well, as the Prime Minister said, being driven by the rebound in tourism, very, very robust and persistent rebound in tourism. And, that has, of course, led the economic recovery. And we see that continuing, notwithstanding some projections from some external agencies about slowing growth. We see and we'll do all we can to make sure that our economy continues to grow. I think and if I can just move quickly to the area of the business license, as Mr. Watson suggested, and then I'll take questions. Last week, I think I gave an update that we had 10,000. We had moved from 3,000 business licenses being issued up to 10,000. I can tell you now that we have 13,468 been issued. That's completely closed, approved, and issued. We have another 5,597 just have been approved but are waiting payment. So if we add those two together, we get just under 19,000. We have 9,859 where some additional information has been requested and we're just waiting, or they're just waiting on that information. And we have 8,166 to review. That's at yesterday, so I'm sure that number is lower. And we have had 651 cases rejected. So I guess they'll have to come back. So the point I wanted to make is steady progress is being made. As the point I made last week was, we fast-tracked a number of categories, and we're working hard. We've put, we have staff dedicated to it. The licenses are good until the 31st, so people can still conduct business. And so we're moving steadily, and hopefully, I can commit next week, you'll see those numbers increase even more in terms of cases being closed and issued. And I'd just like to make one point here, because, we've seen a lot of feedback, and it has entered the political realm where people are talking about why you're requiring people to present certain information. And I'll just like to say this. It's the duty of the department to do their due diligence to make sure that the information being presented to them is correct, and they use their discretion, with that. But I think I should say that the way forward for business is to be in the position where you're keeping your records and, the records of your revenue, the records of your expenditure, because that's the way you know whether your business is profitable. So we should not look at it as the department imposing measures on people, but just as sort of a reinforcement of what good business practices are, whether it's the small business, the medium business, the startup business, or the large business. And so that is what we're encouraging. And as I said last week, we are, and as the Prime Minister reiterated yesterday, we will have special services for the very large businesses right down to the small businesses, where we'll be establishing customer service units to really, as we go forward, be able to deal with these cases and not have the sort of disruption. I don't want to say disruption, but just the sort of debate that we have. And I'd just like to reiterate, as you see from the numbers, we're moving steadily to get all the cases resolved, and they will be resolved. And going forward, we expect it to be a much easier process. And so with that, I would take any questions as it relates to the budget, business license, real property tax, how we're doing. The debate begins next week, Wednesday, on the mid-year budget. I'm told that the debate is expected to last about 3 or 4 days. And there's also a supplementary budget that has been presented. What happened is, because of the Public Finance Management Act, when you, during the course of the year, reallocate more than a specific percentage of funds from one ministry to the next, you have to bring a supplementary budget. And so you'll see this supplementary budget being presented to reflect, for example, necessary and urgent increased expenditure for things such as clinic repair, school repair, and those sorts of things. So we expect a pretty robust debate. As I said, we're on the right track, but there's never time for relaxation. We're always mindful that we're in the hurricane zone, and things can happen, from pandemic to war to political disruption that can take us off track. But we're happy to report to the people that we are on track, and we feel very good about our ability to meet and exceed our projections. So any questions, please? I'll be happy to take. Yes.
Can you talk about the relationship between VAT receipts and growth in tourism versus local spend in the economy?
The biggest chunk of, for one of the driving forces on the implementation of VAT back in, it was debated for many, many years, and we finally implemented it in 2015. One of the driving forces of it was that, most economies in the world now are service economies. It was estimated that our economy is, 70% services, 30% goods. Our tax system at the time, customs, only taxed goods. And so services were left untaxed. So that was one of the driving forces with it. And also what has happened is it's given us an opportunity to tax the lodging and resort and services and goods bought by those visitors who come to the Bahamas. So in terms of the raw numbers, I don't have the numbers here, but it is a fact that because of the robust recovery in the tourism industry, the fact that, our visitors are I think last year up over 7 million. The minister says he's shooting for 8 million this year. When they come, they spend money. VAT is due by and large, except for things like luxury purchases where they can get a rebate. But VAT is due. So improved economic performance, economic growth, more visitors here, more spend, more hotel occupancy, more people working in the industry, earning a wage, then spending that in the economy. That definitely contributes to the collections. We can get we can give you access to the sectoral distribution showing, like, for example, what is collected from the hotels, what is collected from hardware stores, grocery stores, that sort of thing. We can get that to you, those sort of, because it's, we can disaggregate that and give it to you. But the point is, yes, because the economy is improving, that is driving our revenue performance, and also including some of the initiatives that we're taking in terms of areas like real property tax, business license, et cetera.
Can you also explain the reason for the central bank amendment, given that I think the SDR thing has already been done?
Yeah, well, what it is this. The SDRs was an allocation given by the IMF to all countries in the world to deal with the COVID-19 response. Off the top of my head, I think it was, I don't like to call numbers because, but it was like, I think it was $600+ billion allocated across the world to, I think it was 600 billion. But what the IMF did was to enable countries to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic. They made available something called special drawing rights, basically meaning money, to all their member countries. The Bahamas' share, because of our size and our shareholding in the IMF, our share of special drawing rights equated to about the value of it, I think it was like 240 something million, and I think we drew down 232. And so we viewed it as the IMF making that money available to the government of the Bahamas. There was an opinion that the way that the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act is written, it doesn't account, or it didn't account for the IMF making those funds available to the government in that way, and so they had to treat it in a certain way. So just out of the abundance of caution, Prime Minister introduced an amendment to enable the central bank to act as a pass-through of those special drawing rights from the IMF to the government of the Bahamas. And so it's just it's a cleanup, so to speak, to enable them to do it, because technically, as their law was written, they couldn't pass it through, even though it was intended for the government. If you look up, the IMF, when they did the policy, it was intended for governments to respond to COVID-19 in any which way, either by spending it or dealing with, debt that they had to incur because of it. And so it was just the way the law was written. We felt it could be done. There was another opinion that, you can't quite do it without this amendment. So out of the abundance of caution, we said, okay, we'll do the amendment. But the bottom line is, it was intended for the IMF to pass those funds through to the government. The central bank acted, there was an opinion that, and there's varying opinion. One opinion was, yes, you can do it. One opinion, well, it's not quite clear. And so we said, just to avoid any doubt, we'll do the amendment.
But the pass-through happened before the amendment.
Yes.
We noticed that.
But it'll be made retroactive. It'll be made retroactive. Yeah.
Yes, we noticed capital expenditure increased by $14 million. Can you explain why some of this money is being spent?
What happened was there was, in terms of, the bulk of it would be two things: education, in terms of school repair. And what had happened was, I think, and this will come out during the debate, was during the period of the pandemic when school was closed, a couple of things happened. There was no in-person learning, so those repairs were not done. And I think we had some instances where contractors had to go back in. I think the Minister of Education might speak to it during the debate, where the contractors had to go back in and do remedial work on work that had been done before. And then there was just, you would look at a situation and, make a determination as to whether you do some cosmetic repair or whether you go in and do some substantial repair. I'm thinking about like Government High School, T.A. Thompson, those where the decision was made, let's put our children in a safe environment. And so education, because of, during the pandemic, capital expenditure wasn't done, some remedial work having to be done. Same thing with the clinics, a lot of work done in Family Island clinics. And so those would be your main things.
You mentioned customs as well earlier. The electronic single window has been a disaster for most importers and exporters.
I wouldn't say that.
Actually, an official at the Customs Department threw their data provider under the bus, Cloud Caribbean under the bus, saying that Cloud Caribbean has been the problem. What's been the problem with the electronic single
I think
window?
I wouldn't classify it as a disaster. To some points, maybe, if I were to go on and it didn't work that particular time, I would say, oh man, this is a disaster. So some user might have had a bad experience and, in his anger, might have called up the paper and said, oh, this is a disaster, right? I understand about a week ago, maybe 10 days, there was some issue. When I checked, they said they had resolved it. By and large, my advice is that it's working. If someone has anything to the contrary, they can let us know. I know we also had an issue, where small brokers felt that they were being forced to incur some cost. We fixed that, where we made the system free and available to the small brokers. Those who wanted to use a broker can use it. Those who wanted to, clear their own goods, they can use it with no cost. So my information is it's working. The issue has been resolved. As it is with technology, sometimes things go down. But if we look at the bigger picture of the single window, when I spoke about our strategy, collect what is due. I'm not burdening people with more, but what is due, let's do a better job of collecting. We believe that the electronic submission of all customs clearances will go a long way to reducing customs avoidance. All right, and
So what exactly was the issue?
it was a technical issue when it was some technical issue with the person that was thrown under the bus, where they had just a lack of a loss of service, which they corrected. Yeah, but I think within 24 hours, I believe within 24 hours it was fixed. Okay.
With respect to tourism and the economy, how is those Airbnb, that section, how much of a contribution is that section making to?
We are looking in conjunction with the Ministry of Tourism to ensure that they come more into the formal sector, so to speak, which is Ministry of Finance speak to say, well, make sure they pay. As it stands now, we are collecting on the fee that is paid to the Airbnb. We are seeking to move to bring them, into the net, so to speak. And having said that, we're also looking at ways where they can have, those people who are in that sector, have same access to some of the concessions that the other major properties have, because that has been a complaint. The hotel are complaining that these people are eating into their business, but the flip side of that is, okay, if we want to tax them on the total, we should also be looking at how can we make concessions available to them, and that's what we're studying as well. Not off the top of my head. They put out the number. It's like, I don't like to call numbers in case I'm wrong, but it's several thousand. I think it's like well over 10,000. I can get the number for you, but because we do have a monthly report that we have, and we can get it to you, showing, it shows those who are registered, average occupancy, et cetera, average rate. So we have that information. Yeah, in terms of the fee, right now we get the VAT on the fee that's paid to the Airbnb. What we want to be able to do is to actually get a tax on the room rate, and we're moving towards that. Which is not sometimes people say, well, you're attacking the small one, but I think if we look at it it's an entire context. When we talk about improved revenue administration and making sure that we collect what is due, not Al-Qaeda's collect what's due to government, us, right, the taxpayer, because the government has to pay for a lot of services. We talk about government revenue being up, but there are always increasing demands on government. For example, this topical areas, we have to build 2 new hospitals, one in Grand Bahama, one here in Nassau. Have to hire more nurses, doctors, and teachers, immigration officers, police, so that the claims on government are also always increasing. So when we talk about improved revenue administration, it's not hounding people, but it's just making sure that we all pay our fair share.
I guess I would look at it, because some people will use standalone properties, and then you have some persons who will use where they live, their homestead, and so it's paying real property tax.
You mean, this is Airbnb, or what is this now? This is, there are people who, we engaged in, the thing is, none of this is new, so there are companies that specialize in that sort of thing, and we're speaking with some of them, particularly when it relates to people who let's say they don't live here and they conduct all of their business online and all the collections and stuff, and so we're looking at that. But, in those cases, like I think you're about to tell me a particular case or a special case, not a particular one, but let's say a unique case that's not your standard case. I like to say that the department always looks at things like that and works with the taxpayer. All right? Yes, sir, Mr. McKenzie.
Just was wondering, I know we're still in a high inflationary environment. How is that
impacting government projections? Is there any concern about any prolonged inflation and how that may affect domestic spend?
We, interestingly enough, I mean, and much to the amazement of all the professionals, is that, you know, prices are up. You can hardly get a seat on a flight. Room rates are up, but people keep coming. So it's almost as if, you know, this tourism boom, this pent-up demand, this revenge tourism is like, what do you call it? Inflation-proof. So we're still seeing the demand. The hotel people, those in the hotel industry will tell you that they see advanced bookings still strong. We have seen, coming out of the US, some moderation in the rates of inflation. And so we hope that, you know, that will continue to trend down, albeit, you know, every once in a while you get specific items. I think the topic of the day, the other day, was, you know, how the prices of eggs have spiked because of, you know, what avian flu and that sort of thing. So long story short, if it had remained high and escalating, of course that would impact people because, you know, just less money to spend. Luckily, we see a moderation in it when it looks as if it's coming down. And so even the predictions and the forecasts of a recession in the U.S. or an imminent recession, we've seen those sort of, you know, went, you know, fewer people forecasting that and more people thinking that, you know, they might be able to come through and without a severe recession, a slowdown in growth, but not a severe recession. So it looks positive. All things point in a positive direction, and so that is why we're pretty confident. If the economy remains strong, we should meet our budget projections, which is important to us because, you know, people might say, oh, you keep talking about these budget projections. Well, fact of the matter is, if we can eliminate the deficit, we borrow less money, that means we have to spend less money paying interest and debt, and we have more money available to do the other essential things that government needs to do. And so that's why we keep talking about, we got to get this deficit down. Because as well, it goes to our ratings and it affects business. You know, so the higher rating we have, the higher rating, you know, businesses like insurance companies and banks that operate, the high ratings they have. So that is why we talk about it so much. But bottom line, we're moving in the right direction. Things are looking positive. We have to remain focused. You know, we think barring any setback, you know, we should come in pretty good.
You project any significant borrowings?
No, nothing other than what we got approval for in the last, when we did the budget back in June. You know, nothing. It's all been programmed, and so, you know, nothing beyond what we've already gotten approval for, so we don't have to come back for any extra borrowing resolution.
One last question, Mr. Alvarez. The food retailers and the price control of the food retailers is going pretty much quiet.
Yeah.
Where are we now with that?
That expanded list goes until April 17th. Between now and then, we'll seek to come to some meeting of the minds on a permanent expanded list or a permanent solution. We've been discussing the matter, you know, and we've been assessing some of the impact because we've been having some meetings. Some of our people have been having meetings gauging the impact on what has been happening and seeing what the impact is, getting some feedback from particularly some small operators and trying to figure out, okay, going forward, what is the best formula going forward? Because frankly, what we found is that, you know, it tends to impact the smaller retailers more than the bigger retailers. So going forward, we have to figure out a way to, you know, whatever we do, make sure we sort of balance that out. But we think it was the right course of action given the inflationary environment at the time, and given that the government had already done things like reduce duties on food items during the last budget, intervene in terms of with shippers to get shipping rates down, and you know, prices remain stubbornly high. So in the government's view, we had to do something to give some immediate relief, albeit temporary in that case. Some of you might know who cover business that we've been doing since Monday, training for our price control and consumer affairs personnel. We had 4 days of training today. They're actually out in the field, because I had said that during the period of the expanded price control regulations, what we were doing was making sure that we put more people in the department, training them up to make sure that, when we revert to the old margins or when we come up with a new solution, we have enough people properly trained, properly equipped who can go out there and do the inspections. All right, so they were at Breezes since from Monday. Today they're out in the field because we had some new people and they're out in the field today. And we'll be doing a debriefing this afternoon upstairs in the training room if anybody wants to stop by and just have a word. So it was temporary. Use that temporary period to beef up our resources so that when you go back, we can make sure that we enforce. And I'll say this last thing because I see my coat getting ready to get pulled. Going forward, we don't look for a combative relationship with the industry. We'd very much like to move to a more collaborative working relationship. That's what we aim for. But thank you very much. Like I said, the debate begins next Wednesday where more light would be shed. I'll end where I began. Like the Prime Minister said, we're moving in the right direction. We just need to maintain our discipline and we should meet our targets. We are optimistic, but we're going to work hard and we think we'll meet them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for always being very thorough and accommodating us with information and always doing it in an excellent way. Thank you. We appreciate that. Just two quick announcements from here. And of course, you would have heard Prime Minister declare it this week in Parliament, 242 Day, which is this Friday, February 24th. So if you don't understand the 242, it's the second month, the 24th day, 242. It's designed to bring the country alive with our national colors and culture on full display. As we continue our road to independence celebrations, we are calling on Bahamians to celebrate this Friday by wearing your Bahamian colors, aquamarine, gold, and black, which I'm sure we all know already. Listening to Bahamian music, reading a book by a Bahamian author, or engaging in conversations about why you're proud to be Bahamian. We encourage you to do that. You can post, stop looking at me like that, Jared. You can post photos online with the hashtag Bahamian Bahamas Culture, 242 to the world, Celebrate Bahamas, or Road to 50. All right, let's all participate. And you should see the look on your faces. Let's all celebrate and be a part of 242. And then we have an announcement from the Office of the Prime Minister, which actually impacts this very department, the press office. We are pleased to announce two new appointments, promotions in the press office. Journalist and former news anchor Keishla Adderley has been appointed Deputy Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister. Adderley has been instrumental in the press office in 2022, producing documentaries, providing coverage of Prime Minister Davis, writing and helping to set up the new department at the Office of the Prime Minister. She's a journalist of 23 years, served as a news anchor at the Broadcasting Corporation, has carried out assignments across North America, Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, in addition to daily news coverage of events from the Bahamas. Her assignments of regional and international meetings include coverage of the Prime Minister at high-level talks, including bilateral talks with heads of state, deliberations of the United Nations, Commonwealth heads of government meetings, and regional talks throughout the Caribbean. Adderley has served in various capacities at the Broadcasting Corporation, including the hosting of national and state events, news producer, and editor. We are honored to have her, and of course, she's been working with us for quite some time now, and so we're happy to promote Keishla to this. Come, Keishla, our new Deputy Press Secretary. Congratulations to you. And also, our second promotion is Jillian Gray, who has been appointed as Chief Press Officer here in the press office at the Office of the Prime Minister. Gray is a broadcast journalist of 10 years in the field of media as a reporter, former reporter with Our News. She has been with the press office since it was established under the Davis administration. She's worked coordinating the day-to-day activities of the department and the press team. And we're so excited to have her. Come, Jillian. And so we congratulate these two young ladies on their promotions to the press office. They make my work a lot a lot easier by coordinating and working along. And so, ladies, congratulations, and we look forward to taking the press office to higher heights. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. They're happy. I'm sure they are. Okay, so let's go to question and answer period. Any other questions that you may have? Let's take those now from you. Let's begin with Jamila Missick from R News. Anything for me, Jamila?
Do we have a cost yet on the 50th logo launch?
I don't. The Secretariat is an independent Secretariat, and so we'll probably try and get those figures from them. If not, we'll reach out to them yourself. We don't know how they're dealing with their costing as an independent Secretariat, which is separate and apart from what we're doing in government. But we won't have figures on that, but we can try and ascertain that from them for you.
What about what we spent to host CARICOM last week?
Same thing. As you can imagine, CARICOM is just over. So they're doing that now, is calculating. There would have been a budget, obviously, would have been improved from Cabinet. And so they're calculating that. I'm hoping that we'll get those figures soon for you. All right. Zadanas, Escala Palmer, anything for me?
Mental health, we spoke about that earlier. What's the update there? What's happening in terms of anything tangible?
Yeah, something tangible is happening. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is expanding its mental health program. And unfortunately, because of the demand and the need in the country. And so Minister Michael Darville is going to be announcing soon a new program in mental health wellness and a campaign as well, so that people can know where they can reach out to and who they can reach out to get help. We do know that there's private practice, but that can be costly. And so the government is working to set up. We do have people now with the Ministry of Health and Wellness who are there to provide counseling. We have partnerships with some organizations to do that, but a real robust program is going to be announced soon in regards to that. He was finalizing it. They've been meeting on it and discussing it, and we expect to hear that soon.
Do you have any idea in terms of, is a census being done?
I'm not familiar where they're doing a census, and I'm taking you mean in regards to mental health. How many people in our country may have issues? What they've been trying to do is, as people come in, document it. As people go for medical health checkups or other things, to try and be able to understand where people are in that regard, and hopefully back it up with the numbers. You're very right. The challenge we've had in the years past is data. We don't know. We don't know. And being able to understand how much this impacts our society is very important. It's a part of Ministry of Health and Wellness, their program, to try and get an understanding of how many Bahamians are dealing with it. There is a stigma attached to mental health that has to be addressed. People are afraid to talk about it because they're afraid to be stigmatized. I, for one, can give you a personal example of having someone call and ask, can you assist me on where I can go to talk to somebody? I'm sharing and feeling some emotions that I don't think is healthy for my survival. Who do I go to? And I had to direct them to somebody else. But it was it had to be a private place, and then in the concern came costing. Who's going to pay for that, and so forth. So it's a real issue. And of course, in dealing with that person, there was a concern of, well, how would I be viewed if I went to somebody for this help? People think I'm crazy because I have a job, I contribute to society. And the reality is people struggle. And so there has to be robust programs to remove stigma from it. And that's something the Ministry of Health is working particularly on, especially coming out of the pandemic, where we recognize that there has been increased cases and concerns because of what people went through mentally in the pandemic. So that's coming on soon, and we're going to continue to keep the pressure on because we have to address it. More and more people on the streets. And it could be, we sometimes look at it, but it could be anybody. We're all one step away, perhaps, from being in a place of vulnerability. So it's important that we address this issue. Yeah. Jared, Nassau Guardian. Hi, Jared. Nothing. Let's move. Tribune, Yuri. Anything? Nothing. JC and Destiny. Anything?
I know the Prime Minister spoke in his address that the people in the shanty towns must get their affairs in order. Is there any timeline for that?
We're not. There's a time frame.
Okay.
We're not announcing one because we don't want to make it sound cliche-ish. Get your affairs in order. It means just that. Do what you need to do and take the necessary action. because we're not going to announce when there will be the legal people who will go in, the law enforcement agencies who will go in and of course do their checks. So we encourage people to just do what you have to do, get your house in order, settle your affairs. We're not going to put a deadline because we believe it's past due. It should have happened already. And we want people not to sit back and say, oh, I have 2 more weeks by giving you a deadline. Oh, I have another week. No. The clarion call came from Prime Minister to do what you need to do. And that's where we're going to leave it at, because action will be swift and it will be deliberate.
But that could also be open-ended, because then you would have people say that they weren't given a time.
Good question. And that's why what we always do in the Davis administration is ask people to judge by the actions. This room here will keep the administration accountable as to how long you're taking. So we're quite aware of the urgency of this, the necessity of this, and the importance of this to the Bahamian people. And that means the Davis administration cannot slack up on taking action. In fact, before Prime Minister even spoke about it, things have already been in motion, and things were already happening before it was even announced. So the administration is not slow to moving on this. This is very serious business for the administration.
Because then you'll still have one group who was saying, is this just another talk? Is this going to be, another actuarial report placed on the shelf?
Right, not at all. Judge administration by its actions. Judge it by its actions. Jared, you have a question?
Just a follow-up to that.
Yes.
So, did the Prime Minister come to, because he made the address on Sunday, where he made certain announcements about, get your affairs in order and what's not, but on Friday, when he was speaking at CARICOM, his tone seemed a lot different. He suggested at CARICOM that the ruling from the court just put an option on the table. He also pointed out that if you evict people from their homes, that you create a second issue. So we spoke with that type of tone on Sunday. It seemed a little harsher. I mean,
Okay.
Which one do we take?
Fair enough question. You take both. His message has never changed in both. The tones are different, which signals the attribute of a good leader. You have to know when and where and how to say certain messages. The Prime Minister on Friday was among CARICOM leaders speaking to the world. There is a tone that's important as a diplomatic leader in a democratic nation. When he is talking to his people, specifically to actions he's about to take, there is a different tone. Prime Minister is very eloquent and smart enough to know when is the right tone to present the right message for the right image for our country. It's a lesson so many other people can take a lesson from and take out of a page of the Prime Minister's book, that diplomacy is important. It doesn't mean that you renege on your promise. It doesn't mean that you renege on what it is you want to do. It just means that you are eloquent enough to know how to present the information so that it's not offensive and it does not appear as though you are taking something that will create a problem for the nation later on. The Prime Minister's message has not changed. He's moving in, he's doing the right thing for the Bahamian people, he's following the laws. And you will find that from time to time, his tone will change, depending on to the audience he's speaking to. But his message won't change. Okay? Tyler, did you have anything for Eyewitness News? Yes.
Good morning. Any update into the downtown restoration? I think we heard that eviction notices were sent out to some of those dilapidated buildings. Can you confirm that?
I can't confirm it. I don't have any information on that. We can check on it for you, though. Anyone else before we wrap up the session? Okay, great. Thank you, colleagues. And finally, this morning, of course, we love highlighting Bahamian businesses that are making a difference. Bahamian food businesses are making a difference. Many people have started businesses out of adverse conditions. Many have just used their talents and skills that they've had to make it profitable to them. And so we love telling those stories for the Bahamian people. And this morning, we have Devette Lundy from Orchids Delight to come and tell us about her business. So please come, Devette, and tell us about your business and what you have here for our illustrious press pool this morning. Come on up, you and your team, and talk to us.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is David Hannah Lundy. This is my husband, Ronald Lundy. We are the proprietors of Orchis Delight. Orchis Delight is a true testimony to the saying that pressure makes diamonds. In 2020, due to the closing of the economy worldwide because of the COVID-19 virus, that's when this diamond was created. We are super proud to still be standing here 3 years later. We named our business Orchis Delight after my late father's favorite flower, the orchid. Our business bloomed and took social media over by storm with our famous pasta dishes. Since then, we've ventured into many more creative dishes. We're mostly known for our seafood dishes. And we honestly could not have done this without the support of our friends and family, and we are forever indebted. We offer both takeaway services and catering services. No job is too big or too small. We have catered for companies in the past, such as Alive, and we also do small jobs as well, like private intimate dinners just for two. Currently, we are home-based, but not for long. We are looking to expand to a storefront in the near future. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Orchis Delight, and you can reach us on WhatsApp 826-8551. We are so thankful and grateful for this opportunity here today to showcase Orchis Delight. And we have brought a few items for you to sample. We have garden salad, crab salad, spinach stuffed mushrooms, Parmesan spicy barbecue meatballs, stuffed potato wedges, wings, and cracked shrimp. We hope you all enjoy, and thank you again.
Who told you yesterday for you? Okay, okay, thank you so much. And that's our press briefing for today. If you want to reach out to us, you know how to, at the Prime Minister's press office. We're here to assist you in any regard. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.